Over the last couple of weeks, we've talked a lot about the things that could potentially go wrong for the Chicago Bulls, the things that could go right, why these players have a big chip on their shoulder, and things that they all need to prove this season. But I'm going to talk about today why it's important that the Bulls do not let those things that they want to prove wrong about them become distractions. We're going to get into all that and more, plus the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Terry Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. So, of course, it's Saturday, so that means it's mailbag day. But before we get into the mailbag, I want to talk about one aspect of this team that I haven't touched on a whole lot over the course of this offseason. We are only 9 days away from Media Day and thus the opening of training camp. We are right there. One more week before we actually start getting actual, basketball stuff to talk about. Then on top of that, the preseason starts shortly thereafter that. We're rocking and rolling, fellas. Last couple of weeks, let's get through it. But with that said, getting in preparing for this season, the one thing that I do not want to see this team do is allow things to become a distraction, right? We've seen that a little bit throughout this Bulls team's tenure, right? I think when Nikola Vucevic's comments, a few weeks ago in which he said, all the trade talks and things may have gotten to the team some, and while, people understandably slow jumped down Nikola Vucevic's, neck at that point in time, I want to focus on how that became a distraction. And when you look at it, this Bulls team has storylines that are coming into the season that could very easily become distractions for the team. One of them being like Josh Giddey, right? To start right off there at the top, Josh Giddey maybe proving that the way that his season ended with that OKC Thunder team is not indicative of the player that he could become. That could very well become a distraction on, just wanting to prove people wrong. And him and Kobe have that to a degree, right? You look at Kobe White and the season that he's jumping off on and, the questions and things of, is that legitimately who Kobe was, or was that just a hot season, right? That could become a distraction. We already know Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic as well, with the trade talks around their names, the change of direction for the team could definitely become a distraction for them. And then even Modest Bucilis, right? People seemingly doubting him and his rookie prowess and being on the Chicago Bulls team. And that's where having leadership is important for a team, right? And, we know that the Bulls are trying to establish a leadership. We haven't had an identity as a team for almost a decade, like a true team identity. We haven't had that for a long time. And one of my personal knocks on Billy Donovan as well is that he's just not the type of coach that, when you don't have leadership, that I see is like going to just grab the bull by the horns and rally the team around him, right? So when you have those type of things, you have a lack of leadership. You have a lot of young players that are trying to prove some things. You got a lot of narratives around the Chicago Bulls team as well, both the doubt around how good they could be, the doubt around the front office, the looking like an inept franchise for a large amount of time. All these things play into things that could very well become a distraction for the team. And like I said, when you don't have that identity to try to rally around, we could see those distractions become loud for the team and affect very many aspects of the team. One of the things that I've kind of always compared, kind of where we're going, how I would like to see the Bulls built, is that baby Bulls era, right? That Luol Deng, Kurt Heinrich, Ben Gordon, that crop of players before Derrick Rose came over to that team. If you look at it, that team was in the playoffs the year before, and they swept the defending champion Miami Heat. The year after that, that team just could not get going. They ended up having one of the worst records that they had, breaking like a 6-year stretch of making the playoffs. And that team had its own distractions. The Ben Wallace thing became a distraction. The lack of shooting became a distraction for that team. And that team never really got a good rhythm. And then even Joakim Noah, his rookie season, it became a distraction in the narrative over, was he getting along? Was he liked in the locker room? Now he ends up being one of the best locker room guys that we've had, one of the best leaders that we've had with the Chicago Bulls franchise. But, those type of things. And so I don't want this team in a time where there's so much up in the air. There's so much evaluation going on right now on who and what this team can become, these players can become. And if you allow a season of distractions to take that over, that could really, become a wasted season in a lot of ways, not only for the team success, but really for your own individual success. And so, all those things, it's up for that team to kind of, like I said, rally around each other and to find that leadership and to have that vocal leader that is going to pull everyone in if any distractions and narrative and focus on basketball. Now, I know there are going to be some that say, well, these guys are paid to play basketball, Hayes. Those $1 million checks that they're clearing should be enough to keep your ass focused on basketball. And I understand that, but this is still life. These are humans, the beings that we're still talking about. You got to think trade talks, things like that. It doesn't just affect the player. These players have families and stuff. That means moving your family eventually and stuff like that. So not to say that they can't do it, but, to act like a season full of narratives that become distractions don't throw off seasons for teams at times would just be missing the point. And so, and maybe I'm worried too much on that. Maybe it ends up being something to where the distractions don't. I mean, this team actually, because of their desire to prove so much wrong, because of the questions around so many of these players and stuff like that, that it doesn't become a thing. And even the position battle, right? Nikola Vucevic coming in here outside of the trade talk, like the talk that Jalen Smith could have been promised or offered a chance to earn a starting roles. Take for that what you will. Could that become a distraction when you're looking at the balance between those two centers? Could every game or stretch of games where Nikola Vucevic is he looking over his shoulder, which some people could say, hey, Hayes, that's a good thing. Have Vooch, who sucked, look over his shoulders, which he hasn't even sucked. The people who try to act like Nikola Vucevic has just been this terrible basketball player, I think are missing the point a little bit. But, it was something that was on my mind in getting this episode together, is that I don't want to see a season full of distractions for a team that has a lot of promising young pieces, and we're trying to figure it out. More so than it to be a distraction, use that as motivation. And I think that's what some of the best teams do. That's what some of the players that are able to kind of lock in. And that's kind of what even DeMar DeRozan has talked about, right? Like him opening up about mental health and saying that he would like to see more players open up about their mental health and how the game of basketball does impact that, right? So you play a sport that's a competition every day, right? And then on top of that, like the world is looking at you and saying, hey, brother, you suck. You're trying to judge your value based off 48 minutes of basketball every few days a week, right? So like that's another aspect of it. And I just hope that that moving away from the leadership that we did have, right? And I get it. Some people are gonna, because of the lack of wins and stuff with DeMar being here, they're gonna ask how much of a leader really was DeMar. But DeMar was good for the mentality of the team. DeMar was good for building that mentality of young players that are trying to adapt and grow in this league. And so now not having that, and Zach LaVine's never really been that. Don't even get me started on Vooch being the vocal leader for this team. He's never been that either in any stop that he's went. And we don't have the coach to do that either. So, Kobe White stepping into that reported leadership role, him being ready for that, him kind of welcoming that on those responsibilities left by DeMar DeRozan. That's another thing that, on top of him, and maybe Kobe isn't. Like, if Kobe's confident, which his confidence should be at an all-time high, maybe he's not worried about coming in and proving those numbers from last season, trying to prove that it wasn't a fluke. Maybe he is just focused on, listen, I'm going to go out there and play my game, but I need to lead my guys. And that would be a huge step for Kobe White as well, as much as we're talking about any steps on the basketball court. Taking that step into being a leader of a team, taking that step to be the guy who in the key moments steps up, right, as far as vocally to rally your team, that's a big deal. And that's a big step in the player's progression as well. And maybe Kobe's ready to take that step. And we'll see, man. We got some fiery guys on this team. Like I said, long term, I definitely could see Miles Bucilis being a leader of a team, but rookie year, you're not expecting that from a rookie. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Are you worried about anything becoming a distraction for this team in the 2024-25 season? And if you are, how big of a distraction do you think it could be? The team has kind of dealt with the Zach LaVine trade rumor, so I'm not worried about like that hanging over the team. Maybe more so Zach LaVine out to kind of prove people wrong, right? And maybe that leads to some selfish moments. Maybe that leads to trying to push the narrative or whatever to prove that fact that you're a big time player in this league, rather than just letting your game speak for itself. And we know that Zach LaVine is a player that can let some things get to him. Not let him motivate him, right? Let's hope that that's the case. But that's some things that could become a distraction for the team. But let me know if you guys think I'm tripping. Do you think I'm just worried a little bit too much about it? Do you think these distractions aren't going to be a thing for this team? Do you think this team is going to be locked in and ready to go to prove themselves, to prove the world wrong on the 28.5 game win predictions, which we're going to get into a lot of you guys' thoughts on that. A lot of you guys sounded off on the 28.5 win predictions, whether you're taking the over or under on that. And I want to still hear from you guys on that. So don't stop that. We'll probably talk about that on Sunday's episode, but it's it's an interesting period that the Bulls are going into. And I think this new phase of the team is going to have a lot of different looks, a lot of different facets, a lot of different outlooks on it, a lot of different potential outcomes when you look at the number of players that could finally step up for this Bulls team, given the added opportunity, given playing a more modern style, right? That's another thing that I'm really excited about heading into training camp is this team really going to change the style of basketball that we've played for the last few years? If that's the case and we come out of that with a style that kind of much more suits the Patrick Williams, Julian Phillips, the Monis Busilis getting up and down the court, man, that's going to be an exciting brand of basketball. We'll see how many games they win doing that, but it could definitely be an exciting brand of basketball. Well, let me know all that down below, guys. Let's go ahead and get into these voicemails. This one's from AD.
Yo, what's up, Hayes? This is AD. First time leaving a voicemail, but I've been a long time listener. I'm calling in because I think the Chicago Bulls should extend Josh Giddey. I would say at the beginning of the season before it starts, and here's why. First off, if you extend him now, you're proving that you do believe in his skill set. And even with that, if he sees that, he will go ahead and sign over any other competition. Also, just seeing him play in the Olympics, and just how well he did as a team player and just as a player in general, he played really, really well. And I think a lot of Bulls fans and even Australian fans were, just proud and just excited about what he brought to basketball for the Olympics. And then what he can bring to the Chicago Bulls. Lastly, this is a year that he has to prove himself. And I think just personally, he's going to set the bar high for himself and even hit that bar because he just has to prove something to basketball fans in general, to OKC fans that likes him, and then to the new Chicago Bulls fans that just has a lot of faith in what he can bring to the team, and not just because of what Lonzo Ball done for the team, just because he's a pure playmaker in general, and we just have the other players that can just benefit off of just being a pure playmaker. Kobe White, he's a combo guard, even though he did very well in a point guard position. I just feel like Kobe White should focus more on actually scoring the ball and being the leader, the scoring leader of the team, and also just bringing leadership to the team as well. Patrick Williams, he needs that playmaker to actually give him the ball in spots where he can actually hit the shot, since he just want to play passes and not actually want to create his own shot. So if Josh Giddey can get him in his spots to shoot it without a DeMar DeRozan taking up those shots in those same areas, I think that Patrick Williams will also thrive as well. And then the other young guys, they would just rise and just fight, for whatever positions that they're trying to fight for. So instead of just waiting after the season or mid-season to see what he can bring to the table, if he does thrive, other teams will go and offer maybe a higher bag than what the Chicago Bulls can offer, and then he just may go ahead and take that offer. And then guess what? We just lost Alex Caruso pretty much for nothing, even though he probably would have walked in free agency. But I say we lock him up now in a simple fact because.
All right. So a lot of what you said there, I know you kind of went into the things that should motivate Josh Giddey to have a good season this year. And I think that you're getting at, I don't want to paraphrase for you, is that you're getting at the Bulls should basically extend him now because he's going to come out into the season motivated. He's going to have a big year, and maybe you save some money in extending him early. And that's basically what, if they do try to get him a contract extension prior to the season starting, best believe it's because they're confident in him, but also they realize, hey, if we let this go through the season, he could very well make the case for him to get max level money. Let's see if we can get him in a little bit less than that now for the longevity of the contract and the team. So I think if they were to sign Josh Giddey to an extension now, right, it would come down to, yes, they want to lock him in. B, maybe they make it incentive laden, right? That's an aspect of it as well. And maybe they put in some incentives in there to where they can say, and I think they did that with Kobe. He's probably hit all those incentives already, right? But that is something that we've seen from this front office before. So if they were to try to get Josh Giddey in, make some hittable, bench points there for him to hit, right? Incentives there for him to hit. Maybe that's a win-win for both teams, because if Josh Giddey is confident in what he's going to be able to do and the Bulls are confident that he's going to hit it, yeah, working in there as an incentive. So there's a lot of different avenues. Now, We haven't heard very much about it. That doesn't mean anything. Like, we don't always hear a lot before a rookie contract extension prior to the season. So that's going to be something to watch between now and the first game. It's because if they do extend Josh Giddey, I think that does show a full vote of confidence and the fact that they are locked in with this direction that they're going. And so, we'll see. We'll see. Very great voicemail, AD. Very great thoughts there. Thanks for laying that one out. Let's get into this next one. This one is from Domo.
Yo, what's up, Hayes? This is your boy Damo calling from Cali. I'm calling to give you a little pushback this morning about the Josh Giddey, Kobe White thing. I don't think Josh Giddey automatically is going to be the starting point guard. I remember last year you said Devon Carter was going to be the starting point guard, and you see how that turned out, even though Josh Giddey is a way better player. But we can't doubt Kobe White, and, how much growth he's been shown. So I don't know. I think Kobe White gonna be the starting point guard, or they gonna duke it out in training camp and see the best man gonna win. So just wanted to call you some pushback on that. Let me know what you think.
All right. And so I know I've heard a lot of this as far as the pushback. Now, the difference, I want to lay out the difference between the Javon Carter starting last season thing and the Josh Giddey now. Javon Carter was always a slightly over veteran minimum extension. And Josh Giddey is a more long-term investment. Now, when I thought that Javon Carter would start, the reason why was because it fit more in theoretically with the starters. He's a shooter that could pass, and then it doesn't take a lot of shots away, and then Kobe White could get those shots coming off the bench. It was always about the balance of shots versus Kobe having more opportunity in my mind to come off the bench, especially because I didn't expect Kobe to make that leap, and Kobe didn't make that leap at the beginning of that season either. It was kind of after Zach LaVine went down. So the difference between that and this is that it's not that I'm saying Kobe White isn't going to start. I'm saying that Kobe White's going to start at shooting guard and Josh Giddey's going to start at point guard. And when you look at Josh Giddey's playmaking, that actually could put Kobe White in a situation where he can do more scoring and some ball handling as well. So I think that that's a big difference in that, right? Is that it's not just, I was looking at the fit of the team and I thought that Kobe could get more opportunity, but now with Josh Giddey's playmaking, Kobe's still going to get a lot of the opportunity. Now he does need to grow as an off-the-ball shooter. But, hey, everything's going to be told. The thing I've been telling for even the people who want to argue, Josh Giddey's going to actually start at power forward. Like, hey, preseason is right around the corner. We'll see what happens then and there, because last couple of off seasons, any position battle, as much as it still was reported as a position battle over the preseason, but typically if you're a starter, the first preseason game, under Billy Donovan, you maintain and stay the starter heading into the season unless you lose your starting role, but we'll see. All right, let's get into the next one. This one is from Vaughn.
What's up, Hayes? This is Vaughn. So I was just wondering, let's say the Bulls do trade Zach pretty early in the season. Do you think it's a foregone conclusion? So let me say, let's say they trade Zach and they don't get anybody like starter level, maybe like a good bench player and some other fillers or something. Do you think it's a foregone conclusion that Billy just goes and starts Matas Buzelis? Or you think it's possible that he runs a 3-guard lineup with Io at that point? Because every year Io's come in, it seems like he kind of forces his way to just be super important to this team. So do you think it's possible that the Bulls run a Giddey, Kobe, Io, P. Will, and Booch if he's still here? Or do you think moving Zach means that Buzelis is the number one person to be moved into that starting lineup? Let me know what you think. All right, peace.
If Zach LaVine is moved, do the Bulls start Matas Buzelis or do they start Io DeSumo? That's a really good question because we already know that the Io and Kobe starting is a pretty damn good backcourt together. Now, the thing with that is that if it is Io being at the 3, which he did play some 3 last season, they actually played him a lot at the wing last season, and Io's shown an ability to really handle anything that the Bulls throw at him. Now, the one question that I'm going to ask in this is that it depends on what we get back because Io DeSumo is basically, as of right now, the leader of that bench unit projectedly, right? So, and in that case, like, who becomes like, has Matas shown you enough then where you trust him to lead off the bench? Does a player that we get lead off the bench if Julian or Dalen? Like, so I don't know. It's a really good question though, and I think it depends on how things shake out this season. How well does Matas Buzelis look between now and the theoretical Zach LaVine trade, right? Are the Bulls confident in that? And if they are, then do they want to see what it looks like with could be their projected 1, 2, 3, 4 with Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Matas Buzelis, Patrick Williams? Is Patrick Williams still starting at the 4 by that point? Does Patrick move to the 3 and Matas move? Like, move to the 4 or Torrey Craig come in at the 4. There's a lot of different things that if Zach LaVine was moved, I think we have to wait and see the confidence level and how Billy Donovan is using these players, up until that point. But that's a great question. And something that if just to answer your question, if I had to think if Zach LaVine is moved during the season, if I had to bet on just it being Io or Manas Busilis who takes over that starting role, I honestly would probably bet on Io now because he's a more sure thing. And as far as we know, this Bulls team is still trying to win games now. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's Manas Busilis. But great question, Vaughn. Great question. All right, let's get into this last one. This one is from Shay.
What's up, Hayes? This is Shay. Look, man, I'm going to say this, and I know this may seem crazy, but you ever thought about maybe Zach LaVine would do good on a team like the San Antonio Spurs? Now, look, I know what people are going to say. Oh, Greg Popovich don't want that shit, blah, 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 blah. But let's think about it. Wemby is still on his rookie deal and ain't coming out, and ain't coming off of it until like 2 to 3 years. Zach still has probably about 2 more years left on his contract, on his base level deal. So the Spurs can afford to take a big contract like that for now. I believe going to Spurs could definitely help out Zach LaVine, along with playing with a player like Victor Wembanyama, and along with getting some experience from Chris Paul. Now, I know what you're thinking. What do the Bulls get back? Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. I'd say attach that Portland pick because let's face it, Portland ain't gonna never be good. And that pick, like you said, and I've heard you say it, that pick is probably going to convey into some second-round picks. Give them Zach along with that Portland pick, and maybe we could get a player like Keldon Johnson and maybe a couple of second-round picks. That's my way of thinking. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, Shay. You sound crazy as hell, but let's think about it for a second. And then maybe Keldon Johnson, that probably stunts Montes Busilis' growth, but I feel like a few second-round picks and maybe Keldon Johnson for Zach LaVine, that'd probably be a good deal because I know the Lakers do want him, but I don't see the Lakers having much that we want and much that the Bulls would want to give up, and I doubt that the Clippers want to give up any more, especially after giving up so much in the Paul George trade, and I doubt the Warriors, if the Warriors wanted them by now, they would probably already gotten them. But that's just my thinking. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
A lot of kind of speculation has been there that the Spurs could be interested in Zach, and I think that comes down to, does Wemby in his second year with Chris Paul, with Harrison Barnes, have they made the necessary step to where they are a team that's looking like they're trying to compete for a play-in? And at that point, does Greg Popovich feel that Zach LaVine coming to this team with the other young players that they have, that's now your playoff team for the going future? And yeah, we got Zach LaVine before we got to extend Wemby. And the Spurs also have $27 million in cap space, right? They're beneath the luxury tax. So they can pair that with Keldon Johnson. That basically gets you there. Now, if they want to do something to where it's a Keldon Johnson and another player to maintain a little bit more cap space, they can do that as well. And, I do think Greg Popovich is a really good coach for Zach LaVine, somebody that would be motivated in his development, is an actual leader and can kind of talk and motivate Zach LaVine in the right areas. If the Spurs become interested in Zach LaVine, I don't know if another team could necessarily put together a better package because of their ability. That they do have some nice young talent that in Keldon Johnson reportedly they may be looking to move on from. They have a lot of young talent there, and they have the cap space to absorb a lot of that without having to match the salary exactly. So that's actually not a bad team to throw out there, Shay. I don't have my finger on the pulse of like what the Spurs are trying to do, but I think that may be something to watch and monitor over the season. But great voicemail there, Shay. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.